Oh, sweet.
Hi,
Now I got
everyone. Welcome to NJGAAE Presents. You may see that I am once again a glowing orb. I contacted Apple, restarted my computer, did all the things, didn't work. So we're on week 2 and it is okay. So, today we're with Sarah Werner, who is awesome. She's not technically connected to the NJ Governors Awards, except for that she was a pivotal part of my life, and also that she's awesome. So, most of you know, I did a film camp, and that was kind of what changed my trajectory. If you watched any of the things which highlighted me, and she was the director who guided that film camp. So, yeah, pretty awesome. And today we're going to celebrate her on this day as we hang out and discuss the leftovers we ate and the importance of arts ed. So, how was your Thanksgiving, Sarah?
it was good. How was yours? We had a good Zoomsgiving.
Oh, that's nice. Was
It
it
was
a family one or was it with friends?
we did it with them. We called friends throughout the day, but
Nice.
had a supposedly 45-minute Zoom that soon became 3 hours, as it does with family usually, which is a good thing. And then yeah, it was really lovely.
Ooh, she cut out. We are having a grand time on this leftover Black Friday with our technical difficulties. We will have to see. And then if not, you'll be seeing her next week. But hopefully she comes back and we can hang out this week. Oh, and she's back. Hi.
Put it out there.
It's all good.
Oh my gosh. See, we're having technical difficulties all over the place. I think so many people are Black Friday shopping online and hopefully not going outside that that's why the internet's so finicky right now.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. So, you had a great Friendsgiving and Family Giving.
Yeah. How was yours?
It was good. I went down to my family's house, which I've already been like around during the quarantine.
Yeah.
We were masked. I helped
Nice.
make all of the food and we ate outside and it was really, really nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was nice to spend
I
time
don't
with family because it hasn't, it's been so long since we've seen him.
Oh yeah. What was your favorite dish that you had?
I was actually just about to ask you that, and also what leftover you were most thankful for. Um,
Oh no. You go
uh,
first. You go first.
my favorite dish, I don't know, like it was interesting having like I made 2 pies. And so I was curious on how those were going to turn out because I made an apple pie, which was extraordinarily cinnamon heavy. And then I also made a pumpkin pie, which my brother and I collaborated on, where it was we steamed a pumpkin, like we took a pumpkin, we baked it in the oven, and then used the actual pumpkin. And that was really, really cool. And it turned out really well. So probably the pumpkin pie was my favorite. Yeah. How about you?
It's awesome. We saved a little bit of everything. So we did a little leftover sandwich earlier. It's the best when you just throw it all together and put it on some bread.
Mm.
So did that earlier today. But definitely, I'm a stuffing girl. We
Mm.
did a cornbread stuffing this year. It was
Mm.
my mom's idea, and then she did it was like a vegetarian cornbread stuffings. My girlfriend's vegetarian, and I dabble. I try. I'm trying to go back. Less of a carbon emission. But she also made this sausage cranberry stuffing, which was
Mm.
unreal. So
Mm.
that was really tasty. I feel
I love
bad
it.
about it. Sorry, creatures that I ate. But we
I
tried
love
to abstain from turkey.
Yeah. I love
Oh
meat too
no, I
much
was just
to be a
we have a
vegetarian, so I respect it.
I was for 8 years, and then
Oh,
I
wow.
got hit by a car, and I wasn't
Oof.
healing, and I started eating meat again, and it just
Mm.
rejuvenated me. But we have a pet turkey right now, the apartment that we're renting.
Oh,
There's this turkey that lives outside, and her name's Thelma Lou. So anyone named after a combination of like Thelma and Louise, you can't eat. She's so cool.
I
And
love
she's fascinated by cars, ironically, very, very, very fascinated by cars.
it. No. It's like
She's always looking at
it's like a really complicated plot device.
yeah, it's kinda like art imitating life, life imitating art, this turkey and her, like, living up to her namesake, just staring at cars, like, imagining her fate. I don't know if you've for all those who've enjoyed Thelma and Louise, it's a little dark.
So, with post conversation of Thanksgiving, I hope everyone else had a wonderful Thanksgiving. And if you want to comment, because as always, this is an open discussion to talk about whatever. So, please comment what you loved about your Thanksgiving and what you're thankful for. So, I realize now I introduced you from my perspective, but not from your perspective. So please introduce yourself, your job, your specialty, your role. Give us
Alright,
give us the deets.
sure thing. My name's Sarah, and, I had the fortunate I'm gonna go back well, alright, I'm gonna work backwards leading to what you got to. How about that? We'll do that.
Okay.
Um, so I know I'm not part of NJ, the Governor's Award, but I did do I moved to New Jersey when I was 15. I'm originally from Philadelphia, but my family fell in love with Cape May, New Jersey, and they let me move down here when I was 15 because all I wanted to do was surf and draw. So didn't quite matter where I was. So I graduated from high school down in Cape May, and then I went to Monmouth University, and that's in like central Jersey. So New Jersey is kind of where I got my arts mation. So I went for performance and social activism, and it kind of broke down to English, theater, and writing, where my English is my major, and then theater and writing were my two minors. But I fell in love with directing there. I was telling you the other day that I went as a photo major, and then my photo professor, my freshman year, got this book deal, wound up going to Japan, and then no one took over. So like, you have to find a new major. But it was great because I love reading, I love storytelling. So naturally, I went towards English. I was too scared to go into comm, and I'm really sad I didn't. So that's why I'm so proud of you and the youth for embracing what you really want to do. Because I think I knew I wanted to make movies since I was probably as soon as I realized that what cameras were. I think I was always trying to steal my dad's handy cam, and they got me one when I was 8, and I played around with it, and my cats were always my actors, kind of like they are now too. During early quarantine, my girlfriend and my cat starred in everything. That's another story. But, yeah, I went to Monmouth, and it was wonderful. I got to direct my first play when I was 19, which was crazy. It wasn't planned, but I'm really glad I had that opportunity because I fell in love with working with actors, and then I realized that both my passions of photography and theater could be combined into film. And also, I love the ability for film to be translated in any language. Now with the internet, I mean, you could stream it anywhere, and it as long as you have a VPN blocker. But it's pretty incredible that you can have this kind of access with YouTube, with Vimeo, and now film festivals have all gone virtual with the pandemic right now. So it's pretty beautiful how we can connect still through moving pictures, especially now in times of loneliness. Like, I mean, how many of us have just been living through streaming services right now? So it's very satisfying to have that connection. So, sorry, that was a long tangent. But then from Monmouth, I worked for a nonprofit media activism in New York City called GLAAD. They focus on LGBTQIA acceptance through media and storytelling. So I'd be watching all these TV shows and kind of greeting it. And also, if someone didn't do a good job of telling a story of like a trans character, we'd reach out to them and be like, here, this is what you can do to be more inclusive, and just making sure that people's stories were being told and that visibility was positive. And when there was poor visibility, like we'd reach out and be like, hey, newscaster, you can't say the F word like that, and or like that was transphobic, and it was good. And a lot of groups wanted to go through GLAAD to get a just kind of like a media advocacy award and debriefing. It was pretty awesome though. It made me fall in love with the fact that we can tell these stories and have that connectivity to characters. And I mean, I came out when I was 21, not by choice, really. I've
Mm.
known since I was 4, but I never had a character to look up to. And stumbling upon like LGBTQ cinema really saved my life, and that's kind of my mission statement now with film. Is I always try to be inclusive. I always want to have a just a diverse cast, but definitely featuring a queer character, a queer lead. So from GLAD, they encouraged me to go to grad school, so I went to University of Miami, where I originally went for screenwriting. And then my professor, who became my mentor, he wrote Stand and Deliver, awesome guy, Tom Muska. He took me aside in his office. It was like the first or second week when classes started. And I thought it was right after we read our first script. I'm like, oh, he's going to tell me I need to, pick another, like, don't quit my day job, go
Aw.
figure something else out. And he sat down with me. He's like, hey, how are you paying for grad school? I'm like, oh, like I lifeguard and I bartend. He's like, when do you sleep? I'm like, never. And he's like, oh, you're a director. So I'm like, oh, well, I do love working with actors, and I that would be beautiful to do that in a filmmaking capacity. So I had to shoot a bunch of like tiny shorts, which will never see the light of day, but they got me into the directing program. And I had incredible, passionate beginner's luck with my thesis film, and that brought me out to Los Angeles. And just been working on I started out directing in school, and then when I was out of school, I wanted to learn every aspect from PAing, taking out the trash, to working as a grip in the G&E department, then working my way up in camera and being a script supervisor, being a first AD, second AD. I just always brought me back to directing, or people would call me, be like, "Hey, I have the script. Do you want to do it?" And it's all fun short films, but I never could escape directing, and I just love it so much. So here I
Mm.
am, and I had the pleasure of directing this featurette for the Stephen King Foundation with the UM around like 2015, and I wound up coming back to the East Coast, and I was a good friend that I grew up with down here, Chad Chagrin. He moved out to LA with me like a year after I'd moved out in 2012, and called me up and was like, "Hey, like, do you want to do this film camp that I always
Mhm.
did in my hometown?" Like, I grew up doing it. I'm like, "Man, I wish I'd grown up doing film camp." And then the program director at the time, Mike, reached out to me. Love you, Mike. You're the best. And put me on as a teacher, and I fell in love with it. And then the following year, Mike asked me to take over, and then I had the pleasure of meeting Jocelyn and all these
Mhm.
incredible students, and always stealing them to try to be in their group, even though I love everybody. But it was fun working with the more experienced kiddos. So we could really make some fun projects all together, because you guys are the youth who are bringing these stories to life, and we'll continue doing that. But the one cool thing about filmmaking is that you only get better with age. It's kind of like aging like a fine wine. So if you're starting now, just imagine by the time you're my age, what you're going to be doing. It's gonna be unreal, and I'm so excited for that. But it's so cool to be doing this with you, and I'm so proud of you. Jocelyn's made some incredible films, and I can't wait to see what she does next.
Thank you. I had the pleasure of checking out your films as well. Um, some of them are on Vimeo if you look her up, and then some of them are like locked on Vimeo. Um,
A lot of them are, unfortunately, because of producers and
yeah,
current content. But
that's just how it
there's some
goes.
trailers. There's a lot
Yeah,
of
but if you
trailers.
want to go check out the trailers, I definitely recommend it because some of them are really, really cool. Well, all of them are really cool, but I just didn't watch all of them, so I can't necessarily confirm that all of them are as awesome as the ones which I saw. Um,
Oh,
but they're super cool, and you should definitely go check it out. It's just Sarah Werner on Vimeo. And then you can also go check her out on her website, which exists and is beautiful.
oh, I need to update that though. Thanks for reminding me. I like it's one of those things that as soon as the pandemic started, I'm like, I'm gonna do this, and then here I am 7 months later.
I can't
So
believe it's
thank
been
you.
7 months. It's crazy.
It's wild. I can't wait to uh, just wear a mask. Everyone, please wear a mask.
So transitioning to a couple questions, I have about 5 pre-prepared, and as you know, interviews go, we're going to stray a little bit. But the first one is, why do you believe the arts are important?
I believe the arts are important because without them, I don't think all those idiosyncrasies of life would have much meaning. I think art allows us to laugh at ourselves and look at the world around us in a different, more beautiful way. You can just find beauty in everything. Like one of my favorite movies, well, American Beauty. A little hard watching it now, but that aside, I always think of the scene with the plastic bag and finding beauty in that. Whereas, even though whenever I see plastic bags, I pick them up and throw them, recycle them. It's still just so rad that the character and that movie just saw such beauty in that. And I think without art, we wouldn't stop and look at the world around us because, especially as Americans, we're just constantly going and moving. And I think another one of the beautiful things that's been happening, like one of the few good things of the pandemic, is that it's taught us all to stop and pause and take a moment to breathe and really appreciate the world around us. And I think that's what art always reminds us to do.
Absolutely. It's interesting. You do really like meditate on what you. There's a saying. Of course, it's probably from some wise ancient person who like wrote it in a text a long time ago. But it's echoed, and I don't know the exact person or the exact words, but it's the idea that you don't know what you love until you've lost it, and that's really like painfully true with this pandemic. Like, there's just things which you don't think about that you love until you've lost it. Like, I love the interiors of restaurants, and I didn't realize it affected my experience going to a restaurant as much as it does. Like, I still like outdoor dining, but like thematic restaurants just hit differently. And I just didn't realize. And then
like the art on the walls, even like in some of the smaller indie shops that are trying to highlight different artists.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it definitely has a whole vibe.
And then you may relate to this probably because you're a film person, but I love movies and I miss going to the movie theater. Like, today is a day that I totally would have gone to the movie theater if it was open.
Perfect.
It's a temple to movies, like it's these things that we forget that we love so much, and then when we can't go do them, it's like, oh my gosh, we
art
can't.
It's such a communal experience too. Like, think about going to a museum and even enjoying, like, seeing what people are attracted to, how long people linger on certain paintings and images or sculptures, and then being in the movie theater and hearing the reactions. Like, movies are a communal experience too. It's so fun to just sit there and have like laugh and cry with perfect strangers, but to have that human emotion, like have that human experience all together, and be united in that way. And strangers become friends through that. Right before lockdown began, I was out in LA for a press tour for Killer Workout, my most recent project, and we were still at the phase where it was like, is this really happening? Like, how bad is this going to be? So it was part of Outfest Fusion out in Los Angeles, and we packed the theater, and that was the first time we got to see the piece as a crew, which was really cool. The writer, producer was there, our lead actor, and a couple of members of our crew also came out, and we all sat in the theater, and it was jam packed. I mean, we thought we all had COVID after, but it was like, okay, well, at least we'll get it over with and give her antibodies. But that was worth it for the experience. I don't know. Hopefully we're healthy. But my parents were there. A ton of my friends that I came up through the film industry with were there. I mean, industry legends were there. It was such a cool experience to have our work on the big screen and to see the blood, sweat, and tears, and to hear the audience just cracking up the whole time was so satisfying. Because it was definitely nerve-wracking going in there. Whenever I have trouble watching anything I've done, but usually after there's like a 6-month buffer, I can kind of look at it. It was kind of the case of that. So I was actually able to enjoy it. But I had to go speak in front of the audience first, and I was very nervous about that. I got up there, and there were bright lights in this packed theater. There was like 300 plus people. And I got up there and was just completely quiet. I think my friends and family were like, oh my God, she's frozen. And then my friend, who's a comedy writer, was like, drop this joke. Like, I'm just going to pretend like I'm directing all you as background actors and you're all naked. So I did that, and it really helped. And it broke the ice a little bit, but And I'm thinking of how nervous I was leading up to that moment, but how much and, like, not excited about it at all. Like, I don't like talking in front of people, and, now how much I miss it and would
Mm.
love to have that moment to be around that many people and celebrating art again. It's just I miss it, but at least we can do this.
Mhm.
A lot of the film festivals we've done, so far this year have all been digital, and we've had great happy hours and talks
Mm.
and panels, and it's still a way to connect to other filmmakers, which is lovely, but it's I mean, nothing beats in person, but
Yeah.
it's people are really being resilient and trying and building this supportive community, and that's again, a beautiful thing that art can do.
Absolutely. So commenting a little bit on Killer Workout, hopefully it gets on a streaming service for us all to see it eventually, because I got to see it and it's super super funny and like just wild. Like the editing is cool,
Thank
the
you.
directing is super funny. It like and not funny is cool, and then there's like certain parts which like made me laugh out loud, and there's certain parts which made me go like, oh. Like I feel like I got the reaction that you wanted and that the writer wanted, and I was just like,
Yeah.
I was really into it, and I'm excited for everyone else to see it and be into it too.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the trailer's online.
Mhm.
Hopefully, it might be on. I think it's still on Outfest now, right? They have
Okay.
like free trials for Outfest now. But Killer Workout's really fun. It's kind of all of our collective anxiety being released for a lead character, Joy. She's a queer biracial woman who trains the lead of New York City, and she finally snaps and starts having these crazy visions of murdering her classist, racist, sexist, entitled, homophobic clients. So it's a little wild. A lot of like blending of dream and reality and what's actually going on around you. But it's a fun piece. I hope it makes everyone laugh. You get to see
It
it.
was good. It was good watching it, and like, yeah, I'm excited. So I wanted to comment about your advocacy. So that's a big part of your life, for LGBTQ plus representation. So if you were to make, I want to hear a little bit about that specifically, just in general in your life,
Yeah.
and then also, um, if you were to make just one film which like exemplified your advocacy, what are some pointers that you would want to focus on?
Um, Definitely having a queer lead. I saw this movie. I think I told you to check it out too. It's called Knife Plus Heart.
Yeah.
It's this beautiful French film. Basically takes the whole trope of like, why can't a slasher film be queer?
Hmm.
Um, and every character is gay, and it just completely showcases people are people. Like there's no one can watch that and should feel any ounce of hate. And I think that that's so important right now in our diverse society. So I think my goal would be, I mean, to me, like these are my friends that I'm seeing on screen, and I don't see them enough. So I think with everything is just having a truthful human approach,
Hmm.
um, and like Killer Workout, like having some things where you're like, whoa, but then also having those moments where you're leaning in and just really taking in who these people are and hopefully changing some hearts and minds through that. Um, because I think the whole fear is of other. And I think by having more visibility, and especially positive visibility, and telling these truthful stories that just touch upon the human experience and really give you that sense of empathy, it diminishes apathy and
Hmm.
hopefully will bring a lot of people around who are afraid or just not being fully accepting, and hopefully will give other people the courage to be their authentic selves. Um, that was the main reason why I wanted to do Killer Workout though too. And that was written by a straight white man. And I was really scared at first. I was like, okay, why is this guy writing this queer biracial female lead? And I talked to him and I'm like, wow, you are a true feminist. And it just showed you that anyone can write this material as long as you do your research and you're passionate. I think definitely experiential, you're going to go so deep. There's so many incredible directors out there right now. I love what Lena Waithe's doing. Speaking of like the queer POC filmmaking, she's just unreal. Um, but with Killer Workout and talking to him, he's an actor too, and I'm like, well, why didn't you write this role for yourself? He's like, well, there's enough roles for straight white men, and he had been dating biracial bisexual women, and he wanted to give them a voice, and he just kept like hearing all these stories when they'd come home and vent to him, and he's like, well, I want your story to be told, and I'm gonna help you do that. And if you have the vehicle and the access to do that, I encourage people to do it, to go beyond themselves, but also to make sure you're being truthful and check in with your friends who are a POC. Like, I'd love to do a trans story, but I'd want to check in with my trans friends the whole time and have my hand held and make sure that I'm doing the most authentic, positive, honest storytelling that I can that's needed. And also, like, the other thing that I loved about Killer Workout is because, I mean, growing up, like, being a cinephile, I'd be like watching Dexter. I'm like, well, why can't Dexter be like a woman of color who's queer? And that was basically the impetus for Killer Workout for me and agreeing to do that project. I'm like, all right, awesome. Like, I want more little kids to have that, and people in general need to have more representation and visibility. I know from GLAAD, always, the company I used to work for, always does like a media chart of seeing like where each channel fluctuates with how many characters they have who are queer, or in just having representation in general. Like intersectionality is so important too. And they listed that, like, the people who are disabled, like, who are they showing who are disabled, or mental health, and addressing all these issues, and who's doing a good job at it. And the numbers actually went down this year, so that's kind of a bummer. So hopefully everyone has been doing what we've been doing and just developing powerful content, while we can't quite safely shoot unless we have a lot of money. So there'll be a lot of good content coming forth from this pandemic, I hope.
That reminds me of a quote from Matthew Werner, who is the writer and he was a writer on Sopranos, and then he's the creator of Mad Men, which is one of my favorite shows. But this is a quote from him. He says, he doesn't like I don't write like women think this way, men think this way, people think this way, and they think in their own interests. And it was interesting because he talks about that a lot when people ask him, because he writes a lot of women characters and a lot of men characters, but he writes a lot of women characters, and the roles are rather balanced. And he gets asked a lot. He's like, people ask him about getting women writers on the staff, and how his staff is like a lot of women as well, and that they're racially diverse, and he gets asked, like, what is it like writing for women characters? Then what did you think about like specifically getting women on your writing? And he was like, I thought about if they were a good writer. I didn't look at anybody's name when they give me these scripts. I just read the scripts, and then if they're good, I like them, and if I don't like them, then they're not getting the job. And then he's like, humans, are humans. And it's just an interesting thought. So another question for you, continuing on advocacy and representation. There is a theory, well, not theory, it's like a discussion that I've seen a lot with LGBTQ representation, and it's the difficulty with showing authentic LGBTQ stories. So it's the thought that, like, the gay best friend, and every time he's on screen, he's like, I'm gay, but he doesn't have anything else to his character. So what is your thought on that? Do you think that there's value in showing LGBTQ characters, even if they are one-dimensional, or do you think we should, I don't know, like, what's your thought?
I think like one-dimensional characters in general need to go. I think it definitely, I don't think I think it can do harm too. And it promotes stereotypes, fortunately. I could see, like, it's sad that thinking back, like, definitely, like, Will and Grace Will and Grace has done wonders, but I think back on shows when I was a kid, I'd be watching like, oh yeah, that character's gay. But you're right, like, there's even a movie called GBF, Gay Best Friend, but it focuses on that trope, and it's hilarious.
I love that movie on Netflix.
Yeah, it's so good. And I think that people are trying, but like that amazing quote, Josh Whedon, Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a show I grew up on. One of my favorite shows of all time, actually rewatching it now with my girlfriend and enjoying it just as much, if not more, that I am not 9 years old and, like, going way over my head. Um, but, his one of my favorite quotes by him was people would always ask him, like, "Why are you writing female characters?" He's like, "Well, I'm gonna keep writing that till you stop asking me that question."
Yeah.
And again, it's, like, why going back to, like, Knife Plus Heart, like, they're just they're just gay. Like, they're
Mhm.
no other like, they're human beings, full human beings, and, like, their sexual orientation is just another facet of their humanity, and it doesn't matter, it doesn't change anything. And I think that's important not to, uh, change language to cater towards the specific like, these stereotypes or, like, proving who somebody is. Um, but I think we're starting to get better with that, in society, and I think we're starting to see people higher up in the film chain, being out and being comfortable, and
Mhm.
also making sure there's representation. And that, I mean, that's what you would hope for. Like, don't we all want to see ourselves in a character,
Mhm.
regardless of like who they want to marry and go home with? Like,
Absolutely.
it's all human stories.
So I don't know if you remember, so a film which I made, which you can still go see on my YouTube channel, um, and this was the first film that I made with you guys, and it was Project June, and I was
I
the
love
lead
that one.
character.
That was a great one.
But I remember coming in and everyone kind of talking about what they want to do with film, and I remember you having the same mission statement that you have now, and then my mission statement, um, which is still the same, but it's more like secondary to my main one of just beauty in the mundane, which I think can cover
Hmm.
all of it. That if you kiss your girlfriend and but you guys are still like, I don't know, chilling watching TV, and that's part of the story.
Exactly.
It's still beauty of the mundane. It's just this is your mundane versus other people's mundane. But for me, my specific thing was having a plus size woman in a romance role.
And I loved you at that moment. As soon as you pitched that, I was like, "You're I bow down." No, it's true though.
It's something I'm passionate about, as many of you probably can see. I am a plus size woman, um, and I will never not be in the eyes of a lot of society because even as skinny as I can get, I can probably only get to like 12, 14. And so something I'm very passionate about is having people who look like me authentically in a role where another person loves and pursues them. And I think we both have the same kind of mission statement of preaching love and preaching that if you want to change, if you want to have love, you should be accepted in it, you know?
Mhm.
And I think that's why representation is so important, because there there's just so many people out there who haven't seen that.
Yeah,
So,
and it's no one's fault. I mean, if you live in a small area and you're stuck in your bubble, that's how it's gonna be, unfortunately. But if you can embrace further or look or wanna educate yourself, like, you can see that how much that representation matters in
mhm,
just normalization and seeing that that other or like, "Oh, I never thought of that," and, like, "Look, it works."
mhm,
Not a big deal. Like, anything that can just promote that universal quality and seeing things that are not in your tiny little bubble of
mhm,
homogeny, it's
mhm,
so important.
absolutely.
So that I mean, the moment that you pitched Project June, I'm like, "Yes." It was so
um,
fun.
it was a really cool. I really enjoyed it, and I remember it was like that was also the film camp had a lot of changing things in my life, because I remember that specifically as well. When I pitched that idea, no one like batted an eye at it, because the guy who played against me, Brett, he was like he's like 6'5" and like pretty conventionally attractive. And when I was like, yeah, so like I want to in this story for him to like me, and then everyone was like, okay, cool. And like and
Mhm.
I wasn't it was like one of the first times in my life I went, oh, okay, so cool. Like, this is something that is reasonable. And it really changed my psyche in thinking, like, oh, okay, so people who are conventionally attractive can find me attractive. And it was like a weird like transition. Not that being conventionally attractive matters even in the slightest if you're a terrible person. But
Yeah, it was nice that I mean, that was all the campers, you all are incredible. I
Mhm.
hope some of them are watching.
I know.
Um, just the way that everyone worked together and supported everyone is exactly how every film set should run, though. Collaboration's so key with film, and to see that everyone's saying yes and like that improv
Mhm.
exercise, like, yes, and we can do this, and like just supporting one another and getting it to where any of these stories could go. And that was the main difference when I took over the film camp. They used to try to get the campers to take like a fairy tale or a specific story and like read it for their own, but it had to be in these confines. So
Mhm.
that was my main thing, which you all ran with, which was like, all right, tell the story you want to tell and tell the
Mhm.
story of featuring people you want to see and you want to highlight. And it was so cool to get PSAs, to get like little documentaries and just
Mhm.
telling stories about characters that aren't highlighted enough or taking characters like I love that bully one too, like
Mhm.
the anti-bullying piece and being the bully's mind, and oh, it was so good, and that was made by, like, 10-year-olds, like, you all blow my mind.
I will have to put a link to the film camp YouTube channel in the comments when we are done with the stream. But unfortunately, the film camp has disbanded.
We're gonna fix that, don't
We're gonna
worry.
fix it. We're gonna fix it. But at
Yeah,
the moment, that is the status. So, but
we're
that
fixing
does
it.
not mean we cannot go back and look at all the awesome content that has been created.
It was another victim of COVID, but we're fixing it. We're
So,
definitely fixing it.
I was watching. So the reason why I brought up um my plus size journey was because I watched a video. I don't remember, it was just on YouTube. I watch a lot of content about creating content where they were talking about plus size women and how plus size women are looking for representation of them, but the story isn't about our
Yeah.
weight. Like, it's something that's part of us but doesn't define us. And I'd like
Mhm.
your comment about that for LGBTQ representation.
I think it's key for any story, really just highlighting that human experience again. Otherwise, I think it can get a little preachy,
Mhm.
but sometimes that's okay too. Like sometimes we just need your standard narrative that I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna watch it, I'm gonna be taught.
Mhm.
Um, I felt like that with I thought Queen and Slim was brilliant. I don't know if anyone saw that yet. That I mean, I was crying the whole time, but it I mean, it was a like predominantly like African cast, black crew, like black director, and she's brilliant.
Mhm.
Seriously brilliant. Black writer, and it was. I think I don't think anyone else could have told it in a better lens than like the personal, and you can see that in it, and just the anger and the sheer fact that we need something done. But yeah, it definitely was a little allegorical, I think, rather than
Mhm.
preachy.
Mm.
But I know some people that were like, ah, no, like it wasn't, but I thought it was brilliant.
Mm.
But I think that's again though, but I mean, a good film, like a decent film or a bad film, you're still gonna watch it, you're still gonna learn, you're still gonna think about it, and you're
Mhm.
still gonna talk about it. Like that's the other thing. But it definitely it has to be watchable enough that you're sit down there, you're not gonna flip the channel or turn it off. I think my OCD makes me watch things no matter what,
Oh.
how grueling. But, it's, yeah, you just I mean, storytelling, as long as you're doing some like, as long as you're keeping your eyes on that screen, you're doing something right, right? And causing discussion, and, like, if you know what? If a film makes you mad or sad, I mean, especially mad, it's triggering something within you that you gotta think about. Like, I remember the first time I watched Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I was angry. And then I thought back to all my past relationships. I'm like, okay, this is why. And I didn't quite understand it yet. And I felt the same way about Garden State. And then that became one of my favorite movies, although there's a lot of things that are wrong with it. But
Mm.
it's still, I look back on that now and I'm like, okay, like there's certain films where I'm like, oh, I can't stand that, and then I think back, I'm like, oh god, it was brilliant. Or
I love thinking back on movies and going, oh my gosh, like this isn't a movie, but I was listening to Rent, which has questionable LGBTQ
hmm
representation, but it still has representation.
hmm
But I was listening to the song "I'll Cover You," which is arguably, you can find me on this, theater people, is arguably the best song in in the movie, in musical, because it's just so undeniably adorable. But I was listening to that song, and there's a line which I think is a really great representation of two people loving each other, even if they are whatever gender, whatever sexuality,
hmm
whatever. It's the they say you can't buy love. Now I know you can rent it, and at least you're my love. And it one reflects on the entire musical in that it shows like they're renting life, but then
hmm
also it shows how Angel and Collins, like, they've found each other and they love each other so much that they're gonna love each other until they pass away.
hmm
And it's just, I want to see more of that. I want to see more authentic love, and I think it's hard to write that. And I think that's the reason why we don't see enough representation, among other political stuff as well. But I think
yeah.
I think it's hard to write things well.
Yeah, it's scary too each time you are trying to, like, my first ever film, it was about human trafficking, and I had
Mhm.
worked with survivors
I remember that.
in the UK, and my main thing was taking from all my interviews was trying to make a combination story, but I was so nervous doing this. I'm like, I fortunately I've not been trafficked, like, thank
Mhm.
you. Do I know someone immediately that has been? Like, no, like, again, grateful. But it was something that I had been aware of and worked with survivors and wanted to tell us authentic story. And the best gift that came from that was at a couple screenings, I had women come up to me that were social workers and had worked with women who've been trafficked and were like thanking me and like, hey, can I show this to them? And those women also got back to me and were like, thank you. And that was like, that's what that feeling is just so beautiful that you like all those nerves, like, are you doing the right thing? Like, can I tell that, like, do I have the authority to tell this? And every time you're writing a character, you want it to be real, right? Like in
Mhm.
some way, even like the biggest like satire, it still has to have that reality and that sense of truth. So it's so there's not another there's no words to describe how happy and grateful like you feel that your art can touch somebody like that
Absolutely.
and hopefully help them heal. Is I think another avenue and platform for art is healing. And that was what we focused like that's what I was focusing on with survivors was sometimes you don't have the right words or you can't talk about it yet, but you can maybe draw it, take photos, maybe write poetry, just
Mhm.
art as therapy and art as healing.
Absolutely. So continuing on, the arts and going back to the couple of questions that I have, so what impact did arts education have on your life? Because for me, it like was a really guiding force. Was that I was a actor for so long because it was in my school and all of that. So how did arts education affect your life?
I mean, it landed me where I am now. Like, definitely not the stereotypical safe path, but I wouldn't choose anything else, and I'm so happy. Considering I think I got an F in math when I was in 6th grade because I botched this, like, stock market class, and we were, like, running it was something crazy with, like, getting stock, and I failed. Um, but I think the arts were where I felt safest and at home, where I felt like I could be my authentic self, and not be judged, but encouraged.
Mhm.
And I think that's so important with having positive teachers. Like, I think our teachers are need a total shout out, especially now with the pandemic and keeping kids motivated and feeling like they have somebody to talk to and feel safe with and that they can explore education and enlightening themselves. And I think art was a sense of enlightenment to me, just sitting down and free writing to sitting down with a photo and just really finding all those elements of it. Sitting down doing sketches because I was a sketch artist. That was what I was going for before photo. And art again, just it makes you stop and pause and appreciate everything.
Absolutely.
And I think that's so key. And also for people to know, like, you can have a career in the arts. Think of any kind of design, graphic design, arts are everywhere. Come to like designing furniture, architecture, doing green planning. Like, let's create this green park. I mean, art is everywhere we go. Even with science and math, I still think that that's included with art. I think numbers can be beautiful, even though I don't understand them. Uh, uh, but it's just there's so many different avenues that you can go, and I think if people are interested in arts education or just a big fan of the arts, like I love my museum curators, like and film festival curators, judges for film festivals, um, are historians in the arts, are common people who are doctorates in the arts who are focusing on certain features of the arts and breaking it down and writing critical essays and critical theses on pieces. And like I dream of writing, like creating enough content and significant content and someone sitting there breaking it down in class someday. Like I think that would be so cool.
I've thought
Watching one
about
of
that a lot.
yeah, like how rad would that be to be a part of the canon of education? Like how full circle would that be? But
It would I I think about that a lot with the idea that your well on its own that your art can affect another person, but that your art can be studied and that people can look at it and go, wow, there's a lot more to this because you know there's a lot more to it and your immediate people know there's a lot more to it, but other people may not. And that's another thing which I find valuable about Matthew Weiner and a couple other directors. It's I don't know who it is. It probably isn't Quentin Tarantino, but it may be. But there's a couple other directors who say, like, basically the film is made like 4 times. So it's made in the writing, it's made in the directing, it's made in the editing, and then it's made after it goes out and is given to people. And people do what they will with it. And that's just such a valuable perspective to keep. That idea that your film can mean anything to anyone, and that's why I really liked your anecdote is the wrong word because it trivializes it, but it's not your story about your film Aurora because you saw the reflection on people, you saw people's reaction, and you saw how important it was for some people, and I think that's so valuable.
it's so I mean, there's no word to describe it again. Like it yeah, it's so empowering for all. And I think that's another form of art is empowerment. And yeah, it's so cool. I just love and the fact that it can be translated into any language. Oh, that was sweet. That comment that just came up. Hi.
Terry's awesome. I'm gonna
So
say
I was reading that. I'm like, oh,
every week. Hi Terry, you're awesome.
Terry, you're awesome. Sorry, you got I reading that. I'm like, oh. I'm like, maybe I should voice that. I'm reading.
But yeah, it's there's something so valuable about the effect that something has on another person, and I think our film like film has a direct effect on people, and all art has a direct effect on people, and it's just so wonderful.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we've evolved from like we were talking about the other night, like we evolved from sitting around a fire with oral tradition, like Beowulf has become Kill Bill in a way.
Yeah.
Like think of that. Like here's your first one of your first stories. I mean, we're storytellers as society. Like think about cave paintings. Like we've been going frame by frame since the dawn of time, like dawn of humanity. Like, here are pictures that are a journal or a story. Um, and now we have the technology of capturing even further. It's
Mhm.
wild.
Absolutely.
I wonder where we'll be in the next 1,000, 2,000 years,
So we have about 10
1,000,000,000
minutes
years.
left of our wonderful discussion. So those in the audience, please send in questions to Sarah or to me or just in general about film, or about advocacy. And I want to, so these next questions are um, a little bit more like towards you, not as much specifically arts education, though arts education, as we all know and are here, is so very, very important. But what is something that inspires you during this time, with being at home, being in lockdown, and then also just in general, what inspires you? It's a hard one.
Yeah, no, I think thinking back to just the whole resolve of making these characters, so my whole another mission statement of mine would be, I want my younger self to be proud,
Mm,
of any bit of like, any piece I do. I just wanna think back and be like, "Alright, that kid is proud." And I think back to anyone who's feeling alone, and I don't want them to feel as alone. And if I can touch somebody, like one person through my art, that I'm satisfied. So I think that's my motivation every day. So I mean, it's easy to fall into a slump right now, especially with how isolated we are. But I mean, I'm so grateful that I have my partner to wake up to every day,
mhm,
who's also a filmmaker. So we push each other. It's kind of hard to turn off sometimes. Um, but it's just having that motivation of like, okay, like things are not going as they seem, but let me think back. Things could be worse. My hands work, my feet work, my brain
mhm,
works. Let's use it
mhm.
to touch one person. And I try to do something positive for one person a day if I can, whether
Absolutely.
that's reaching out online or just doing one little thing.
So share something from your career that you are proud of.
Oof.
That's a lot
Um,
too. I'm asking you these hard-hitting questions.
Well, I think going back to just the audience responses from pieces, like
Mhm,
having the women come up to me after Aurora, and then after Aurora, some producers noticed I could handle intense content, so
mm,
I was asked to do a Stephen King piece, which was regarding the aftermath of 9/11 and post-traumatic stress and having survivor's guilt. So that was a tough one. That was a very tough one. I'm very lucky for my crew and cast that were equally wanted to go deep with me.
mm,
Um, but after that too, we screened near DC. We screened in New York, and to have New Yorkers come up and be like, "Thank you." I
mm,
think one of the another moment of having that audience interaction. We screened at a horror film festival. It was like a sci-fi horror film festival called Shriek
mm,
Fest. Um, Denise is awesome. Denise runs that. She's amazing. But we were at Shriek Fest, and after we screened, and like I'm screening with like stereotypical horror, like blood and guts, awesome stuff. But and here I am, this piece is gonna make you cry. Well, so I
mm.
hope. And I'm just like sitting there, like people are gonna hate me, and this like big burly dude that could have been like a WWE like goth metal guy. He was awesome looking. After the lights come up and like I have a name tag, like, you can't avoid who I am. This guy's like, "I freaking hate you, like, I effing hate you," and I'm like, "Oh."
Oh,
He's like
no.
he's like, "You made me cry. That was the best thing I've seen in so long. Can I have a hug?"
Oh.
Like, "Okay." So, that was pretty
Oh.
cool, and to get reactions like that, again, talk about, like, touching everyone, and, like, I never wanna judge anybody, but, like, first impression there, I'm like, "This guy's like, not gonna admit he cries, he looks like a badass," but, like, he's even more of a badass that he just admitted that he sobbed, and, it was
Yeah.
I think that's some of the most, I think audience interaction for sure. Because I mean, we're making these projects to be seen, and again, it goes back to me being really shy. It's so
Mhm,
scary, like, bearing your heart and soul, and I think sometimes I have trouble. I'm very verbose, but, I definitely have trouble expressing myself, and my poor
mhm,
partner is awesome for that, but I feel like
mhm.
I can express myself to my greatest capacity through art. So every time someone sees one of my pieces, I feel like I'm naked because essentially I am. Like, here, this is my baby that I made with my crew, and my crew too. Like, without them having like dealing with my nakedness, like and accepting it and appreciating
Mhm.
it, like you were talking about Project June, like supporting one each another, like the yes and it could never be. And to have that support team, and then to go out from our support team, which could be like 2 people, could be 5 people, could be 30 people, could be like a 50-person set, which are really cool to be on when you're especially moving like all these moving parts and somehow you all are moving as one. I think that's another part of the job which I'm most grateful for is the set family. Like I love my film family so much and I miss them dearly and I can't wait till we can all work together again and have the opportunity to. Um, but I think those 2 things, my film family and the audience for sure, are what I'm most grateful for.
Absolutely. So, as we start to wind down, with about 5 minutes left, and also you commented on something that I'd like we can discuss another time. I wish we could have a like. I love talking to you, and I also love these discussions. But that this buff man was um and was able to admit that he cried. That's a whole other discussion of
Yeah.
representation and masculinity, which
For sure, for sure. I put my preconceived notions of toxic masculinity on him them, and then I had to think back to that too. I'm like, why do I have these notions? And I need to break that myself too. It teaches you a lot about who we are and who everyone else is, and how we're all just human having a human experience.
absolutely. But that's a whole other discussion for
Yeah,
another
true.
time. But um with about 5 minutes left, I'd like to hear your words of wisdom for young artists, and that can be general artists or that can be specifically young filmmakers, whatever your heart would like to share.
Oh man, I gotta lean in for that one. Um, well, I think the key thing is embracing yourself and not being afraid. I know that's two things that are really hard to do is one, like, I mean, we change every day. Like we shed skin, we shed hair. You might dye your hair a different color. You might wear something that makes you feel completely different, but that's what you're feeling like doing today. But I think learning who you are through art and not being afraid to show that in your art is key. And also knowing that you can do it. I wish that I had when I first knew I wanted to make movies, I wish that I'd started then, but I'm grateful for the journey that I had, and if you know that's what you wanna do, but you might wanna put on the back burner for a little bit and learn some other stuff, that's great too, because that will always affect your art, and I think as young artists, read as much as you can, watch as much as you can, experience as much as you can, because that's all gonna be reflected into your art, but always go with an open heart, open mind, and just look for the stories that you know will change hearts and minds because you can do that. Y'all are the future. And I can't wait to watch all the movies that you're going to come out with and be inspired by. And I hope we all can collaborate on something someday together too.
Absolutely. I love to hear it. um I I am so thankful for you. I'm so thankful for the film camp. I'm so
I'm
thankful.
thankful for you. Thanks for getting me out of my turkey coma and my tofurkey coma and talking about movies and trying to keep people in on a Black Friday night, which is a great thing.
It's all I
I
want to
really
do all
appreciate
the
it.
time is talk about movies, and I bet you feel the same.
Oh, yeah, now my mind's going like 100 like, after this, I'm just gonna go write. It just feels
That's
great. It
that's
wakes you
great.
up.
I'm currently putting links down below. I put a link to the Cape May Film Camp. I'm putting a link to
Oh,
Sarah's
sweet.
Vimeo. I'm going to put a link to my YouTube channel. So you guys can all check out our films. You can email me if you have any comments for Sarah, or you can go to her website. What's really cool is if you look up Sarah Werner, no H, um, online, you'll see her. Like her name will come up. You'll see a picture of her. It'll say film director. It makes me geek out every time I look it up.
Me too. I'm like I tease my girlfriend because she's building an online presence right now, but when we type her in, she comes up as a television newscaster for Fox, and I tease her for a while, but I am honored that I've now become an internet search, and it's pretty cool. Like,
Absolutely.
super cool.
Well,
Terry's awesome.
I know, right?
Me too.
I
I
hope
do agree with that, though. I think we all need to have our attempts at making your pumpkin pie, and then too bad that, maybe, like, send each other some slices somehow.
we'll just send
That
pictures and then hope for the best.
soon there'll be a hyperloop, and we can just hyperloop them to each other.
Oh my gosh. I can't even begin to think about that. Well, I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope everyone stays safe, stays comfortable, and you all go out and watch a thing which you've never seen before, look at a character that you don't know much about, and then also a personal recommendation if you are looking for some nice, cozy LGBTQ cinema, go on Hulu and watch The Happiest Season. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Sarah.
You watch it. That's what I'm doing tonight.
I know. I watched it like last night, and it is surprisingly great.
Oh, I'm so
Um,
excited. Clay Duvall is one of my favorite actor, directors, creators. So this is her directorial debut, and I'm
oh,
so
awesome.
like, how cool is that though? She was in But I'm a Cheerleader, which
Wow.
was my quintessential coming out acceptance film. My ex-boyfriend in high school showed it to me, and I was like,
Oh,
"Are you trying to tell me something?" And I'm very grateful that he showed it to me. So
absolutely.
I'm so stoked for her, and like talk about like killer cast too
Oh,
of representation and visibility.
absolutely. Well, with that, I hope everyone has a great night. It was wonderful hanging out with Sarah. Reach
Thank
out
you
to
guys
her,
for tuning in.
reach out to me. Always down to chat and always down to say hello. And thank you, everyone, and have a great
Hey,
night.
thanks for inspiring me, Jocelyn, and everyone out there. You're the best.